Evening, everyone. Welcome. And seems like a good time for a drink again. And well, I'd be happy if you join me. It's always nice to have some company. So, yeah. No booze for me tonight. Just some nice warm tea. So, anyway, cheers to you. And Jesus too. Warms you right up, which is starting to cool down a little bit. Not by much, but can you believe it's October already? Time flies. October 2020, jeez. So, and the world is still crazy. Still very crazy. And well, if you're looking for peace, don't look to the world. It's you're not going to find it anywhere. You got to look within yourself. And well, if you're Christian like myself, that comes from the good Lord. But for everyone else, I'm sure you could find a hobby or something like that. Keep yourself sane. Distract yourself from all the insaneness that's going around. But anyway. Speaking of craziness, I have an article I'd like to share with you all. It's about Syria, and if you're not familiar with what's going on in Syria, they for years they've had a war going on. They had a terrible civil war. You had their leader, President Bashar al-Assad, and on one side, and then you had these rebels on the other side. But neither side was really good, you know what I mean? Assad isn't a very nice guy, I'll put it that way. And then these rebels were basically jihadis, so they weren't saints themselves. They were doing terrible things. And then ISIS showed up, and I'm sure you know what those people do. Horrible, horrible stuff. Anyway, Russia intervened, Turkey intervened, and then the United States sent some troops in. It's crazy. So, anyway, the war is winding down, hopefully. The United States was sent in there to specifically fight ISIS. But, as you'll see, they're sticking around now for other reasons. So, we'll get right into it. And, you'll have to excuse the paper. I like paper. I need something physical. All the bells and buttons and whistles and digital, it's just too much for me. Just too much. Which is ironic since I'm an IT guy by trade. Weird, I know, yeah. It's kind of like the car mechanic who doesn't want to work on his own car, you know? You just don't feel like it anymore. It gets old. So, anyway, I'll put the words up on the screen though for you guys. Anyway, this is from Politico, and the title is "Little Known U.S. Firm Secures Deal for Syrian Oil." More tea. I'll fix anything, right? Okay. An American company has inked a contract with Kurdish authorities in northeastern Syria to develop and export the region's crude oil under a secretive deal approved by the U.S. government months after President Donald Trump announced he was leaving U.S. troops to secure the oil, multiple people familiar with the project told Politico. So the Kurds are another faction in this war. They were actually the most effective force in fighting ISIS for when they first appeared, at first anyway. Like I said, Russia came in, Turkey came in, Kurds are there, United States. It's a mess. So they're another faction in this puzzle. I could go on for days about the Kurds, but I'll try and stick to the article. The agreement reached by a little-known firm helmed by politically connected former military and diplomatic officials has already angered the government of Syrian President Bashar Assad, which does not recognize the Kurdish authorities as autonomous. The Syrian foreign minister called the deal illegal and said it is aimed at stealing Syria's crude. Last I checked, taking without permission is stealing. I mean, you can claim all sorts of things, right? You could say it's for the good of this, good of that, and we'll get to that later. But it seems a lot of people have forgotten that. When you're little, we're taught that taking without permission is stealing. Pretty simple stuff. I mean, it's the foundation of what civilization is built on. Don't take my stuff, right? Also, what I thought was funny is politically connected former military and diplomatic officials. So, people like to say the United States is a capitalist country, right? We have a capitalist system. No, we don't. This is no means, not even close to capitalism. It's run by politically connected people. I mean, just look at the Federal Reserve, the United States government, bailouts. It's favoritism. People who get in with the government get the favors. It's not capitalism. It's not a free and open market where, people compete and the best person wins or the best company wins, right? It's whoever's politically connected. So I just wanted to make sure that hit home with everybody. Really, you'll start to see patterns with all these big companies, right? They don't get in because they built the best car or the best computer or the best anything. It's because they got connections. And that's not capitalism. Anyway, moving on. The deal advances a long-time U.S. goal to help the Syrian Kurds, which have been staunch U.S. allies in the fight against the Islamic State terrorist group, to strengthen their position in the region, where they face not just Assad's brutal regime, but also the Turkish government, and provide new means to help address the desperate needs of civilians that have been caught in the Syrian civil war. The company, Delta Crescent Energy, LLC, was incorporated in Delaware in February 2019, according to its business license. Its partners include former U.S. Ambassador to Denmark James Kane, James Reese, a former officer in the Army's elite Delta Force, and John P. Dorier Jr., a former executive at Gulf Sands Petroleum, a UK-based oil company with offices and drilling experiences in Syria. So, like I said, insiders. It has been in talks with the Kurds for more than a year, but only received a license from the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control for the work in April, according to a State Department official and a Syrian source familiar with the discussions. The arrangement is to refine and use some of the oil locally, but also export some through northern Iraq and Turkey. Skipping ahead. However, the Pentagon and State Department have long been working to enable the Syrian Kurds to harness the crude oil in the region, a former Trump administration official told Politico. The idea is that revenue from the oil could help the Kurds deal with the dire humanitarian situation in the war-torn country, including overflowing refugee camps from years of civil war, the person said. Okay. Seems nice, right? Help the Kurds. They've taken the brunt of the war. On ISIS anyway. Seems nice. It does. But hang on. There's more. We'll get to it. The deal first came to light during a Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing on Thursday when Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was questioned about it by Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Pompeo said the administration supports the deal and said it is intended to modernize the oil fields. The deal took a little longer than we had hoped, and we're now in implementation, he said. I think this company's going to improve the viability of the northern oil fields to make them more productive, Graham said. Conceptually, it makes sense that we should, instead of just writing checks, help people help themselves. Once again, seems fine. Help people help themselves, help the Kurds, get the oil. Wait for it. Hang on. A State Department spokesperson declined to comment on the contract, but noted that the U.S. government considers requests on a case-by-case basis to authorize U.S. persons' involvement in activities that would normally be prohibited. So, once again, not capitalism. If you're in the bureaucracy and you can push the paper and get the favors, you win the money. We're not involved in the commercial decisions of our local partners, however. As a general matter, we work to ensure that our sanctions are in line with our foreign policy interests and target the Assad's regime continued violence against the Syrian people, the spokesperson said. Syrian oil is for the Syrian people, and we remain committed to the unity and territorial integrity of Syria, the spokesperson added. The United States government does not own, control, or manage the oil resources in Syria. The populations in areas liberated from ISIS make their own decisions on local governance. So, GovSpeak. I don't know if you're familiar with GovSpeak, but there's a lot of bureaucracy in there. And the cool thing about bureaucracy, or the terrible thing, depending on which side you're on, bureaucracies can point fingers. They can say, we didn't do it. We're not managing the resources. We're not taking the oil. We just approve permits. It's not our problem. The Syrian oil belongs to the Syrian people, and we recognize the territorial integrity of Syria. No, you don't. I mean, if you did, why is the United States military in there without the express approval of the Syrian government? There is a civil war going on, I get that, but if you wanted to fight a war, you needed to go to Congress to get approval, like the Constitution says, which you didn't do, right? So, it's GovSpeak, right? It's a bunch of mumbo-jumbo. Delta Crescent has so far been the only company to receive a license to work in Syria since U.S. military forces all but abandoned the country in October, except to guard the oil fields, of course. And I don't know, it says they're the only company to receive a license. Is that because no one else applied, or no one else was able to grease the skids, if you know what I mean? Trump at the time ordered only enough troops to stay in the war-ravaged country to allow for keeping the oil, once again in quotes. The U.S. used residual forces to secure the oil fields in the eastern part of the country and to continue fighting Islamic State militants. The country's oil fields were seized by ISIS during the Civil War. Years of fighting that forced ISIS to retreat left the production infrastructure devastated, however. Here's my favorite part. Pentagon spokesperson Commander Jessica McNulty noted that the Department of Defense does not have an affiliation with any private companies in regard to the oil fields in northeastern Syria. That would appear most improper, wouldn't it? However, she added that U.S. forces in the region are securing critical petroleum infrastructure in northeast Syria to deny ISIS access to critical resources and revenue. The militants previously used revenue generated from oil fields there to fund its terror operations. We will not let that happen again, she said. McNulty also noted that the oil resources currently provide some of the funding necessary for the SDF to conduct operations against ISIS. So, once again, pointing the finger. Well, military is saying, oh, we don't work with any private companies. We're here fighting ISIS. That's what we're doing. Who's on first, right? Right hand, left hand, who's doing what? GovSpeak. Lots of GovSpeak. You gotta love it. Oh boy. The company's plan is to sell the Syrian oil to various customers in the region, potentially including Assad. Wait, I thought we were fighting Assad. You're going to sell oil to Assad? Interesting. Turkish-backed rebels, moderate rebels, the kind that behead you, right? So moderate. And Iraqi Kurdistan, all of whom could then sell it on the international market, the Syrian source said. Another thing I want to point out is Lindsey Graham said, I forgot what page it's on, he said, help them help themselves instead of just writing checks. However, when you have the United States military guarding oil fields, you're essentially writing checks, aren't you? You have to pay these people, and it costs money to keep the military out there. So even though you're not writing the Syrians checks to help them with their humanitarian problems, you're still spending money on them by guarding the infrastructure. And the United States military is not cheap. I know, I was in the military. It's not cheap. It is very expensive. So that kind of double speak, or double think, or whatever you want to call it, right? We're not writing checks. Well, honestly, it would probably be more effective if you did write checks. Because the United States military is very good at making money disappear. Just want to throw that out there. Anyway, final thought for that article, and one that I want to leave you with, is fighting terrorists, humanitarian goals. Those are all well and good, and I support those ideals. It seems nice. It does. It really does, on the surface. However, history has proven otherwise, and I really want to hit this home with you guys. The Middle East is full of ethnic and tribal conflicts. And us going around messing in that area, messing around, can have consequences that are unforeseen. And I'd like to point out that the Taliban was created by the United States, our country, to fight the Russians in Afghanistan. And Osama bin Laden directly received funds and training from us, right? And look where that led us, right? September 11th. Saddam Hussein, bad dude, got support from us to fight the war against Iran. We actually supplied Saddam with arms and funding and equipment, all sorts of stuff, to fight the Iranians in the Iraq-Iran war. And a lot of people died. Horrible stuff. And, I mean, we've been messing around in the Middle East for decades, many decades. And none of it has resulted in anything positive. And I mean that. Nothing positive has come out of that. We've spent money, we spent lives, resources, and we've gotten nothing out of it. And when I look at this and I see us spending, once again, lives and money and resources, and they say they're going to help, they say it's for good. Yeah, that's what you always say, United States government. You always say it's for good, right? Because nobody wants to believe that what they're doing is going to harm. I get it, right? Well, some of them don't care. They just want the money. But there are unintended consequences. There are problems that arise from messing around in places that you have no business messing around in. And that's why George Washington warned us not to engage in foreign entanglements. We're supposed to mind our own business. And let's be honest, I feel for the Kurds. I get it. Humanitarian crisis. This is true. However, if you want to help them, feel free. Right? You go help them. Open up your wallets, your hearts, your time. There's charities that can go out there and do the work. But it's not appropriate for the United States military to go out there and secure oil fields for private companies for the Kurds. I mean, even though they say they're not doing that, let's be honest, that's what they're doing. I mean, can we just stop lying to ourselves? I mean, for reals, guys, come on. Anyway, long story short, messing around has unforeseen consequences that are bad. Terrible stuff. Short version, anyway. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Like I said, it's sad, it's crazy, and you'll lose your head if you get wrapped up in all this. But I just bring this to your attention because I find it interesting, and I really want people to be aware of what's going on in the world. And there's also a lot of historical perspective that goes into these things, and it's good to be aware. You don't want to be ignorant, so at least you shouldn't. Anyway, I hope you have a good weekend, and I hope everything works out for you in the near future and the far future, and I really wish the best for you. Yeah, I hope to see you again. join me again for another drink. But in the meantime, take care, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Good night, everyone.